Okay, so let's start off with rule number one, which is map out the system like you're training a 4-year-old. Most failed AI projects come down to one thing, and that was that the logic was never mapped clearly. So you don't want to assume that AI will just figure everything out, because every question, every response, and every next step should be documented in a flowchart. It's the exact same process you would follow if you were to hire a VA. You'd have the exact SOPs documented out. So if your goal was to book these leads in for a consultation, you need to write down exactly how you would do that as a human. How you would handle objections, what you would do if the lead asks to call back later. You need all of that detail documented out before you even start building anything. So you just want to pretend you're explaining it simply to a 4-year-old, step by step, so there's no assumptions at all. And this is exactly how we map out these solutions for our clients. So let me actually dive in and run you through how I would map it out. So you start from the first trigger, which is the inbound call is received. And then we have the first message, which is narrated by the AI. So it'd be like, hello, thank you for calling Solar Tech Solutions. I'm here to help you with solar installation. May I have your name? Then the AI actually carries on. It says, hi name, great to speak with you. First, what type of property are you looking to install solar on? And then we go ahead and actually capture the property type. So we have residential, commercial, other, or unclear. And for each of these different scenarios, we have different branches to map out the entire conversation flow. So everything is mapped out in a lot of detail. So we've got every single branch we would go down in every single scenario as well. Now, this isn't even all the detail that we would go into. We would go into even more detail because we need to map out FAQs. We need to understand the exact API connections we need in order to have the agent actually perform functions like booking or taking orders if you're a restaurant or a takeaway business. So there's a lot of different functions that need to be mapped out, but this is a pretty kind of high level overview of the actual conversation flow itself. So this is what I would usually request from the client before we can actually map out the system in a lot more detail, which is usually what we do in week 1 when we actually build the voice agent. Now, if we carry on down the flowchart, you can see we're capturing even more information, the location, we're capturing the roof condition because it's a solar business. And there's also, a lot of different kind of scenarios which take place based on the information. We capture the bill amount, which is useful to understand whether solar is going to offer them a lot of value or not. And then we go ahead and actually ask for a time frame as well, so we understand how urgently they actually want this. And then finally, we kind of wrap up the conversation by getting them to book in for their quote, which would be booked in, via the selected time. We then go through the booking system and we make that booking, we capture their contact information and we book that in. And then within the final stage here, the customer can also ask whatever questions they have. So if they have a lot of questions that they want to ask about the service, then they can. And obviously we go through this loop until they have no more questions, in which case we end the call. So again, this is a pretty high level overview of the process. This is sort of the initial step going into the actual planning phase. So what we would do is map out the conversation flow. We would get a list of FAQs from the client, understand exactly how we can integrate those FAQs into the voice agent. We would understand the actual architecture of the agent. We'd start mapping that out. And also map out the actual API connection. So that would be for bookings, taking orders, etc., etc.